Hey there, besties. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're going to continue the recap of the manhwa Betrayal of Dignity. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the video because it really helps our channel grow. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. I am carrying his child, Chloe. What can I do? Alice said, crying. Chloe sat on her bed, confused about what to do next. Did this happen because we placed too great a burden on her? If this is the price we must pay for our selfishness, then I must prevent this marriage at all costs, Chloe thought with strong conviction. First, I will need to persuade father, she decided. The next day, Chloe went to see her father very early in the morning. Awake already, Chloe? What brings you here so early? The Viscount asked, surprised to see her in his study. I wish to speak to you about Alice's marriage, she said softly. I gave it some thought, Chloe began, but her father interrupted. I mulled it over all night as well, he said, causing Chloe to flinch as she raised her teacup. The possibility of Alice marrying into the house of Thisse is both a source of concern and relief, he continued, breathing a sigh. Whatever do you mean? Chloe asked, not understanding his choice of words. House Thisse is a family that values honor. That means they would never send Alice away if they were to find fault with her character or conduct. Duke Thisse surely knows what a cruel fate it is to be a divorcee in this kingdom, her father explained. Father, there is something I must tell you, Chloe said, cutting her father off as she set down her teacup. What is it? He asked, concerned. She was about to reveal what she wanted to tell him when Gillis burst into the room in a hurry. Lord Verdier, Lady Chloe. Lady Alice she has disappeared, he said, his tone high and drawing their attention as they watched him in shock. What do you mean by that, Gillis? How could she disappear? Viscount Verdier asked, running towards him in alarm as Chloe grabbed hold of her walking cane to follow suit. I found this in her room, Gillis said, revealing letters he had discovered. Let me see that, Viscount Verdier said, snatching the letters from Gillis' hands and reading them. To my beloved father and dear sister. I grew up witnessing the boundless love father had for mother. I learned from you that true love transcends both illness and death because you are living proof of that love. I no longer wish to ignore what my heart desires. I also wish to keep my head held high for the sake of the child I carry and prove to myself that no love should be forbidden. I shall now relinquish the name of Verdier and simply leave as Alice. I apologize, father. Do not forgive me for this selfish deed. Chloe, I am sorry. I hope I will be able to make amends for this one day. As Viscount Verdier read the letter, he lost consciousness and slumped to the ground. Both Gillis and Chloe rushed to him in panic. Father, Chloe cried, tears streaming down her face. The letter continued to read. Though I am a thankless daughter, please know that I am sincere when I say that I love you. With a heavy heart and 1,000 apologies. Alice. Later in the evening, after things had calmed down, Viscount Verdier lay in bed recovering from his fainting spell. Chloe sat by his side. Chloe, my dear, did you know? He asked her weakly. I was dimly aware that there was a man Alice cared for, she admitted. The fact that you did not mention it to me must mean you disapproved. And if even you found him objectionable, he must be a good-for-nothing scoundrel, he said with a sigh of disappointment, turning his head away from her. If Alice ran off despite my objections, I am sure he must be a worthy man. I trust her, Chloe said, placing her hands on her father's. Everything is going to be all right. Please, just focus on getting better, she told him. As for Duke Thisse, leave it to me. I shall speak with him, she added with a faint smile, standing up and facing him before stepping out of the room. Outside the Viscount's room, Chloe met with Gillis. You looked the other way when she left, did you not? I knew the moment you walked in holding her letter. You would never have entered her room without her permission, Chloe said to Gillis. I suppose there's no use hiding anything from you, Gillis replied. Gillis, thank you for being there for her, Chloe told him. I wasn't sure of the right thing to do myself. That is why I am grateful to you for helping her leave, she said, turning her gaze from him. What is done is done. We must make the best of it now, she added. Lady Chloe, Gillis said, trying to reach out to her with his hand but restraining himself, trembling gently. I hope you're not blaming yourself. Please don't think you must take responsibility for this, because if you do, I don't know how I could live with myself, he told her, bowing his head slightly. Gillis, I am the only one who can look after House Verdier now, Chloe said, looking out the window. I will find a way for all of us to survive, even if it means making a very dangerous choice, she told him, determination clear in her voice. 3 days later, Chloe went to meet Duke Damian at his estate in the neighboring village. As she approached his balcony, he greeted her with a sly smile. How unexpected. Did you find my offer of marriage so pleasing that you decided to personally inform me of its acceptance? He asked upon seeing her. It is not something I could discuss in a letter, Chloe said, standing in front of him. Are you afflicted with an infectious disease? Duke Damian asked, his tone mocking. I'm not sure what you mean, she replied, unsure of his implication. If that isn't the case, why don't you step closer? Come, take a seat next to me, he said, offering her a seat next to him. Or will you disobey my order? He tells her. Chloe stepped forward and sat down beside him. My wound is not getting any better, he told her, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. Have you seen a physician? She inquired, turning to face him. No, he replied curtly. Will you apply some of this solution for me? He asked politely, showing her a crate full of bottles and lotions. Do you not have hands, Your Grace? Chloe asked politely. I can tell what you are thinking by that look on your face, he said clumsily. Well, you are mistaken, she replied, snatching the bottle from his hand. The days are too hot to promote proper healing. It would be best to remain indoors as much as possible. Spending time outside will only impede the process, Chloe advised, rubbing his injury with the solution. We do not have such pleasant summers back home on the Thisse estate. I enjoy the feeling of being scorched from head to toe, he remarked with his chest bare. You may withdraw your arm now, Chloe said to him once she was done. So, tell me, why was my proposal rejected? He asked, his tone curious. Chloe kept her head bowed, avoiding his gaze. Marriage is now physically infeasible for my sister, she said calmly. And the reason? He questioned with a sharp look. Did she suddenly pass away? Before I tell you the truth, may I ask you a question? Chloe said, clenching her dress tightly. Go ahead, he told her. The reason you wish to marry my sister, is it because of me? She asked calmly. The sound of the waves hitting the beach could be heard in the background. I am curious as to why you would think that, Duke Damian replied. I am asking if your intention in inserting yourself into my family is to bring about my complete and utter ruin, Chloe said, her voice steady. He laughed lightly. Do you remember what you said to me the other day? To think every woman in the kingdom is desperate to marry you is a bit of an egotistical delusion, he said, reminding her of her words. I would say it is you, Lady Chloe, who is self-absorbed to the point of delusion, he added with a smirk, causing her to flinch and turn red. Do you really think I would marry the daughter of an undistinguished, debt-laden viscount just to torment you, her disabled sister? He asked her. You're right, I thought it unlikely, she scoffed, turning her head away from him. You can be surprisingly amusing sometimes. Did you know that? He asked. No, I did not. Does that mean you love Alice, then? Chloe asked, dodging his gaze. Duke Damian sighed softly. Do I strike you as a romantic who believes marriage should be based on love? Then, there can only be one other explanation as to why you proposed to my sister, Chloe said. And what could that be? He asked, sounding uninterested. There must be some pressing reason why you must marry a daughter of House Verdier, one that you cannot reveal to others, she said, facing him. Go on, he told her, now getting interested in her words. If there is some rationale behind why you must turn down the most eligible brides in the kingdom for the offspring of a low-ranking family, it likely does not matter who you marry, she said confidently. Which means, you might even prefer to wed a woman with a flaw so conspicuous that no one would give her a second glance. You mean, for instance, a woman who has lost the use of one leg? He said, leaning towards her. If I had lost the use of both, perhaps I would have made a more perfect bride for you, would I not? Chloe asked him. Duke Damian held her jaw, leaning forward. He drew nearer, holding her jaw and planting his mouth on hers. They kissed passionately, both getting lost in the moment as moans escaped through their embrace. Chloe panted gently, her face flushed with desire. Duke Damian paused for a moment, holding her face next to his, both of them panting romantically. Chloe held his hand, stopping him from advancing. "What do you think you are doing?" she asked, turning away, her face flushed as she freed herself from his grip. "You always make such cutting remarks. I wanted to see just how sharp your tongue truly is." "This seems like the perfect opportunity," Duke Damian said. "To ask if you are able to bear me an heir," he added, kissing her neck. She backed away, her face fully red, remaining silent. Chloe turned and slapped him. "To act this way when you have yet to respond to my offer is shockingly disrespectful, Your Grace," she said, as he rubbed his cheek. "Indeed, that is a fitting response," he replied, sticking out his tongue. He rose from his chair. "However, I suggest you familiarize yourself with the principles of negotiation again," he said, buttoning his shirt. "Now go," he commanded harshly. Chloe watched him with tense feelings, unsure of her next move. A few days later, at the Verdier estate, Chloe sat still in her study, dazed as she touched her lips. She remembered the Duke's kiss from that day and found herself reminiscing about his face. "Chloe," a voice called, bringing her back to the present. "Lady Chloe," Gillis shouted, causing her to jolt back to consciousness. "Are you all right?" "You're looking quite pale," he asked, holding some papers in his hand. "Yes, I am fine now. Where were we?" she asked, sighing with relief. Following the congratulatory message regarding the engagement, the royal family has continued to send gifts to Lady Alice. "The garden is still full of wagons filled to the brim with presents," Gillis said, pausing from reading the paper. "If I may ask, my lady, did your conversation with the Duke not go well?" Chloe fixed her gaze on the floor, avoiding his eyes. Was my intuition correct? Chloe wondered. She knew that Prince Johannes was the official heir to the royal throne, but there was one person whose power was comparable to that of the royal family and who enjoyed the respect of the people: Duke Thisse. The royal family must be delighted by the news that the Duke, whose power had grown immensely, was marrying the daughter of a humble viscount instead of a noblewoman from a distinguished family. Duke Thisse himself must also be well aware of this, she thought, remembering Alice. A butler soon entered the room, interrupting her thoughts. He walked up to Chloe and leaned toward her. "A guest has arrived," he informed her softly. "A guest? Who is it?" she asked. "It is Duke Thisse. Shall I let the master know?" he said, causing her to tense. "No, father is ill. We should not disturb him. I shall meet the Duke on his behalf. Please ask him to wait in the drawing room," she instructed, rising from her seat. "I will go get ready and then meet him there," she told the butler before leaving the study. "There you are. I have been waiting for you," Duke Thisse said upon seeing Chloe. "You look surprised to see me here," he added with a faint smile. "It is highly improper to enter a lady's empty bedchamber uninvited, Your Grace," Chloe told him politely. "I couldn't help myself. I missed you too much," he replied cheerfully. "This is a private space. I will have you shown to the drawing room," she said, as he stepped forward to her. "Will that really be necessary?" Duke Thisse questioned as he held her jaw. Gillis stood there in awe, watching them. "Our relationship will soon be such that we will not need privacy from one another," Duke Thisse said, fondling her hair. Gillis was stunned. Pausing for a moment, Duke Thisse fixed a sharp gaze on Gillis. "Shut the door," he commanded. Gillis left the room, shutting the door behind him. As he held onto the door handle, he trembled slightly before letting go. Back in the room, Duke Thisse showed Chloe a necklace. "These jewels have been passed down through the generations of House Thisse. If we were to follow tradition, my mother would be the one giving these to you, but she does not quite approve of this match," Duke Damian said, sipping his tea. "That is to be expected," Chloe replied, looking down sadly. Duke Damian watched her, curious about her demeanor. "Are you only pretending to remain calm?" he asked, placing his teacup down, "or do you genuinely feel indifferent?" Chloe glanced at him. "I'm afraid to react too hastily, for I do not know what words will come out of your mouth next," she told him. Does this mean you accept my offer, Your Grace? He asked, smirking with his hand against his jaw. Yes, Chloe said softly. Consider this a proposal, Chloe Verdier, Duke Damian said, taking the necklace from its case. Will you be my wife? He asked her. Chloe remained calm. I am truly grateful that you have decided to accept my offer, she told him, bowing slightly. Grateful? He repeated, puzzled by her words. Yes, Your Grace, she replied. And how will you prove that? He questioned. I will do my very best to be of assistance in every endeavor you undertake, regardless of what it may be, she said, fixing her gaze on him. And what is it that you think I want? He asked, causing her to pause, tension growing as she watched him. Chloe, must I run my tongue across your parched lips again to make you open your mouth? Duke Damian said, causing her to flush. I believe it is power that you want, though I am much too short-sighted to know precisely what you are thinking, Chloe said, her gaze drawn to the floor as she held her skirt. From this moment on, you are forbidden from saying such things in my presence, Duke Damian said, wiping his mouth. I know you are not short-sighted, he added, looking at her intently. I shall do everything in my capacity to assist you, Chloe said. And? Duke Damian interrupted. And if you should wish to divorce in the future, I shall gladly accede to your request, she told him. You would grant me a divorce? How insolent, Chloe, Duke Damian said with a smirk. Your arrogance infuriates me, he added, observing her gaze fixed downward. I apologize if that is how it sounded, but I hope you will not misconstrue my intentions, she said. And what exactly are your intentions? What is it you hope to get from me? He asked, looking unimpressed. I want, she said, clutching her fist. I want to be a duchess, Chloe said, looking up at him. Duke Damian stood up and walked towards her. He placed the necklace around her neck. How does it feel to wear the jewels of House Thisse around your neck? He whispered, close to her ear, causing her to blush. They feel heavy, Your Grace, she said softly. This is nothing compared to the weight of responsibility you will carry as the wife of a duke. Do you still wish to be my wife? He asked softly. Chloe paused. Yes, I wish for nothing more in the world, she said, turning her head toward him. I see, he said, caressing her lip with his thumb as he held her face from behind. And have you given more thought to the principles of negotiation? What do you think it is I want in this very moment? He said, leaning closer to her. Chloe held his tie, drawing him closer, and kissed him. They kissed passionately as she clenched her skirt, getting drawn into the moment. She released him, freeing herself as he panted softly. Is this too much for you? She questioned him, making him speechless. I do not wish to lie, you will have to get used to it. Things will only get more intense, she told him, looking flushed. Oh my dear Chloe, I had absolutely no idea, Viscount Verdier exclaimed upon hearing the marriage proposal. I expect she will make a fine duchess, Duke Damian said, smiling. Chloe remained quiet, her demeanor not looking bright. Of course she will. I guarantee it. My daughter is a wise young lady. I am sure she will win everyone's respect, Viscount Verdier said confidently. If you can just make her happy, I shall willingly offer you everything I have, including my own life, he told Damian. Duke Damian placed his hand on Chloe's hand. She observed his glove, stunning her. How did he find the gloves? She wondered, remembering the gloves she hadn't given him as a gift. If that's the case, will you grant me the forest on the Verdier estate and the mountain that leads to it? The Duke asked the Viscount. The forest and mountain? But the soil is barren and those trees can't be used for anything, Viscount Verdier said with a smile. They are lands cherished by Lady Chloe. They also happen to be where everything began between the two of us, Duke Damian said cheerfully. The wedding day soon arrived. Do you swear to remain by your spouse's side and fulfill your duties through all the trials and tribulations you may face? The priest asked, reading their vows. I do, Duke Damian said, fixing his gaze on Chloe's eyes. The bride and groom may now kiss as a vow of commitment before God, the priest instructed. Chloe closed her eyes, bracing for his kiss, but Duke Damian kissed her cheek instead, surprising her. Were you expecting something else? He asked with a sinister look in his eyes. Chloe looked a bit disappointed and did not meet his gaze. You look absolutely radiant, my dear Chloe. Her father cheered as he and Gillis applauded the newlyweds. Gillis clapped softly, his mood visibly unhappy. By the grace of God, I now pronounce you man and wife, the priest declared as the couple stood together, Duke Damian holding her. They stood silently, not uttering a word. Chloe, he called her name. She turned slightly, facing him, unsure of what he wanted to say. In a split second, Duke Damian swept her off her feet, carrying her in his arms, causing her to blush. Our sincerest congratulations, Your Grace. People cheered as they saw them together. Please put me down, she begged as he held her. Do you intend to drag this out? Duke Damian asked, pecking her cheek, causing her to wince and close her eyes as she blushed. She watched him passionately, reaching her hand to him. She held his neck, clutching to him. Well done, Chloe von Thisse, he said to her. I heard the Duke left the Verdier estate as soon as the ceremony ended. Someone gossiped with another. He rushed off without even spending the night with his bride, said another. Gillis stood watching them as he could hear their conversation. Does that mean the Duchess will be left all alone on the estate for 3 months? Another person chimed in. In the tailoring shop, Chloe met with a seamstress. Did you catch that piece in the red veil? Chloe asked her seamstress. Apparently, Duke Thisse, she murmured as she read the newspaper. She saw Duke Damian holding another woman. Was even marriage unable to extinguish Duke Thisse's fiery passion? The newly wedded Duke has been seen rallying with Marchioness Isabella, she read inwardly, not uttering a word. I shall burn it at once, my lady, the seamstress told her. That will not be necessary. Burning these pieces of paper will not turn the rumors to ash, she replied, placing her hand on the leaked news. If you have finished taking my measurements, I shall take my leave, Chloe tells her. But we have yet to discuss the fabric and design, the seamstress tells her. I will leave that to your discretion. You are more knowledgeable in these matters than I, Chloe told her before leaving the shop. Gillis stood waiting for her outside the door. Chloe sighed as she glanced at the newspaper she had just read. Men and their inability to control themselves will be the ruin of this country, she said, passing Gillis as she headed to her carriage. The coachman prompted the horses to begin riding with a latch as soon as they were seated. Why don't you leave the management of the estate to others for the time being? I can take care of business on your behalf as well, Gillis suggested. No, that is all right, she told him. You might attract unwanted attention because of the piece in the red veil, he asked her. Gillis, if people were to see the Duchess allowing myself to be swayed by such baseless rumors, they will only grow more uneasy, she told him as he watched her, mute. Chloe looked outside as the carriage rattled gently before turning her head back. Her memory flashed back to her encounter with the Duke after their wedding was over. I shall return to the capital now that the ceremony is over, Duke Damian told her as he sat upon his horse. As for you, you may perform your ducal duties from here, he told her. Not once in the last 3 months has he responded to my letters. Could this be the reason? She thought, looking at the piece in the red veil featuring Duke Damian and Marchioness Isabella. To be honest, I was not expecting anything from this marriage. There is no reason to let this affect me, Chloe thought, gripping her skirt firmly. Gillis watched her, looking puzzled from his seat. Lady Chloe, good news awaits you back at the manor, he finally said to her. Good news? Chloe asked, surprised. A letter arrived from Lady Alice. It was short, but it seems she is well, he told her. Why did you not tell me sooner, Gillis? Chloe asked excitedly, happy at the news concerning her sister. A letter from Alice. How wonderful, she said, smiling. Are you that happy? He asked with a smile. Of course, Chloe said cheerfully. I now know Alice is safe, and father is visibly in much better health. My marriage has also put the people of our estate in high spirits, she thought inwardly. What's more, I would much prefer to live apart from him anyway. If only it were possible to live in peace like this forever, she thought as the carriage moved through the streets. As I have mentioned in my previous letters, all is well at the Verdier estate, thanks to your grace. I hope the business that called you away will soon be settled. I shall write again if anything noteworthy arises. Sincerely, Chloe Verdier. Duke Damian read the letter as he sat in his castle. Chloe Verdier. Does she not intend to take my name? He wondered, holding the letter. Was even marriage unable to extinguish Duke Thisse's fiery passion? The newly wedded Duke has been seen rallying with Marchioness Isabella, he read in the red veil. She must have seen this, yet she made no mention of it. How did it make you feel, Chloe? He questioned. Did you shed tears of shame? No, you probably held them back as always, unaware that this is precisely what aggravates me most, Duke Damian said softly, wearing a smirk. He flipped through the red veil and continued reading. Duke Thisse's secret love affair during what should be his honeymoon has strengthened the position of Prince Johannes, the heir to the royal throne. Meanwhile, rumors of the king's deteriorating condition continue to circulate, he read. They have reported exactly what I've told them to, he muttered, looking at the paper with scornful eyes. He tapped his fingers against the table, recalling his encounter with Chloe. She had said she believed he wanted power and that she would do her best to assist him in every endeavor. As if you could do anything, he scoffed. Whenever I think of her, I get a sudden urge to seize hold of something. She grated on my nerves from the moment I saw her. It irked me to see her walking among and treating the wounded when she could easily be mistaken for one of them herself. The strange feeling that kept rising within me every time I saw her like that left a sour taste in my mouth, he thought inwardly. Pausing his reading briefly, Duke Damian opened his drawer and took out the hand gloves Chloe had gotten for him as a gift. He examined them closely. Perhaps next time I should lock her in a room and make her sew all day. And when she runs out of cloth, I will have her embroider my body, he said softly. Soon after, the Duke went to the palace and sat beside the king on his sick bed. The king coughed. It shall not be long now before the Lord calls me home. I trust you will serve Johannes well even after I am gone, he said softly, wheezing and struggling to speak as he lay in bed, Duke Damian seated next to him. I am sure you are aware that he is not of sound mind, the king added with a slight sigh. Swear before God that you will be loyal to Johannes, the king said. I will, if he is a king worthy of my loyalty, Duke Damian replied sharply. What? What did you say? The king exclaimed, letting out a cough. It is the duty of a subject to serve his king, Damian, he said, coughing more violently. Then it is only too clear what the future holds for this country, Damian said. It is ruled by someone who has gone mad without anyone noticing. He paused. Ah, I take back that last part. I know of his madness, as do you, and all those who died at his hand, he added, referring to Prince Johannes, the heir to the throne. There are floods of rumors about bodies being pulled from his room one after the other. It will not be long before the people find out that such words were never rumors at all, he said to the king. Your Majesty, I risked my life on the battlefield for the sake of this kingdom, Duke Damian said, leaning forward and gripping the king's hand as he lay in bed. I will always be ready to fight for my country. Is it not only right that the throne goes to a man who is worthy of it? He spoke with an evil glint in his eyes, perplexing the king. What do you dare imply before me? The king muttered angrily, coughing in the process. Johannes's madness may be a secret for now, but you cannot cover the sky with the palm of your hand, he said, rising from his seat. Since when have you harbored such self-serving ambitions? The king asked Duke Damian. Since when? The duke echoed, stepping slightly away from the king, his back turned. Since the day I was born, he said, looking back at the king with an evil smirk. In the Verdier's castle, Chloe sat in her study, flipping through a book. She couldn't shake the thoughts stirred by the Red Veil's publication. Duke Thisse and Marchioness Isabella. Maybe I should have taken a closer look at that article, she thought, recalling the Duke with the lady she had read about. Chloe slammed her book shut in disgust, feeling a twinge of jealousy. No, forget it, Chloe. Of what importance is it to me? She said inwardly. Her father, Viscount Verdier, walked into the room with a letter in hand. Chloe, my dear, you have received a letter from His Grace, he said, smiling as he held out the letter, showing it was from Duke Damian. It seems that he too was troubled by that piece about the scandal, he added, causing her to flinch as she watched him silently. Chloe reached out to take the letter from her father. He has not written to me once since leaving for the capital, she thought before opening the letter and sliding out its contents. She read its contents inwardly. To my beloved wife, Chloe Von Thisse. Wait for me at the Thisse estate while performing your duties as Duchess there. I hope you have been looking forward to our meeting as impatiently as I have. She read the signature with a gulp, feeling tense. Your husband, Damian Ernst von Thisse, she read, holding the letter with a nervous feeling. Chloe soon got ready to set out for the Thisse estate at the command of the Duke. Gillis, I trust that you will safely accompany my daughter to the Thisse estate, Viscount Verdier said to Gillis as they prepared to embark on their trip. You need not worry, my lord, Gillis assured the Viscount. He is right, father. I am no longer the small child I once was, Chloe said to her father. My dear, Viscount Verdier said, holding her hand as she placed them on her walking cane. You and Alice will always be little girls to me, he added, sadness in his voice. If I had to guess, you'll still think that even when I am an old woman, Chloe told him. You are probably right. I know you are the honorable wife of a duke now and that you should have left my side long ago, but he began, but Chloe hugged him tightly, cutting him off. Father, Chloe said, embracing him firmly. Yes, my child? He responded softly. Inwardly, Chloe wished she could live at the estate with him forever. I will be all right, she said softly, her face against his chest. You have seen for yourself how much the Duke cherishes me, she added, letting go of his embrace as they held hands. Inside, she thought, Father, I do not wish to go to the Thisse estate. I will be fine, really, she assured him. Gillis observed them silently, still holding Chloe's suitcase. So, please, send me off with a smile, she requested, giving her father a warm smile. The train moved steadily along its track, letting out jets of steam as it rattled gently along its path. Inside the train, Gillis and Chloe sat facing each other in their cabin. Lady Chloe, I would have been perfectly all right riding the freight car. This compartment is much too fancy for me, Gillis said, observing the cabin and appreciating its aesthetics. We have 2 long days of travel ahead. Besides, I will soon be spending much of my time alone, she said, not looking at his face. As the train moved through the land, it soon began to snow outside. The snow is coming down, Gillis told her. So it is, she said, looking out the window as the train rattled gently. They soon arrived at the birch castle of House Thisse. Greetings, your ladyship, a maid said with a bow, welcoming them at the entrance of the castle. I am Eliza, the head maid and acting steward, she said, introducing herself. Chloe glanced around, noting the castle's vastness. This castle is enormous, yet only one person has come to greet me. That can only mean I am not welcome here, she thought. Thank you for the warm welcome, she said, striking her cane gently against the ground. Would you prepare some food for my attendant to take on his return journey? He is weary from escorting me here, she asked Eliza. Very well, Eliza replied as Gillis stood watching with a sad look. Lady Chloe, Gillis stuttered. I shall have a maidservant find something for your servant. You may follow me, Eliza said with an unfriendly look. Chloe turned to face Gillis. Gillis, I am sorry. I will not be able to see you off. Thank you. Have a safe journey back, she said with a smile. This way, please, Eliza said, drawing Chloe's attention. Chloe turned to follow her, limping gently with her cane. They soon arrived at the castle. Your Grace, Lady Chloe has arrived, Eliza announced to the lady of the house. Show her in, the lady commanded. My name is Chloe. It is an honor to finally meet you. Thank you for arranging for the carriage to collect us from the station. It is truly appreciated, Chloe said, bowing to the lady upon seeing her. Look at me, Chloe, the lady said in a commanding tone. Chloe gently lifted her head, amazed at the sight of the lady. You are quite a pretty one, the lady said. Chloe realized she was Duke Damian's mother. The Duke must take after his mother, she thought inwardly. You look just like the very first deer that Damian caught as a boy, the lady remarked, causing Chloe to smile faintly. You are too kind, Chloe remarked graciously. Are you secretly in possession of fantastic wealth? Or do you have knowledge of skeletons in the royal family's closet? Duke Damian's mother questioned, leaning closer to her. Not as far as I know, Your Grace, Chloe replied softly. Then that must mean Damian chose you as his bride for reasons other than practical ones, his mother said, brushing her hand against Chloe's face. It is true that you are beautiful, but hunting a deer with an injured leg for sport is rather unusual for my son. I simply could not believe my ears when he asked for the family jewels because he was going to propose, she continued, waving her hand as she observed Chloe closely. Was it curiosity, perhaps? He does enjoy a good thrill every now and then, she added, causing Chloe to laugh slightly. Well, I am sure His Grace would not have made such a serious decision as marriage out of short-lived curiosity. I do not know his reasons for choosing me, but I intend to serve him as best as I can despite my shortcomings, and do my utmost to ensure that House Thisse thrives, Chloe said confidently. Oh, you are brighter than I thought. I like you, with a pretty face like yours. I am sure my jewels will suit you nicely, and since you seem to have a good head on your shoulders, you will be able to help me manage the castle, Duke Damian's mother said, turning away from Chloe. I would have expected no less of my son. There is nothing more important to him in this world than his family, you see. Now that you are here, how about I tell you what Damian was like as a child? She said with a warm smile, delighted in herself. Chloe couldn't help but be tensed at her word. After the tour, Chloe slumped on her bed, feeling exhausted. She had spent hours listening to Duke Damian's mother boast about him. I would have guessed that he had a very strict upbringing, Chloe thought, reminiscing about how Duke Damian's mother had spent the entire day praising her son. But he was clearly adored as a child. How exhausting, she said softly, sighing with relief. Turning her head, Chloe noticed the Duke's portrait facing her bedside. Feeling uncomfortable, she turned it down, covering the photo. He had a portrait of himself placed in his wife's bedchamber? She sighed. Soon after, she drifted off to sleep, the portrait of the Duke facing her. I was rather surprised to see you shut yourself in the study for 3 days when you have only just arrived here, her mother-in-law said to her one morning over tea. I see you are similar to Damian in that regard. Once he starts focusing on something, he is unlikely to notice the sun rising, she exclaimed excitedly, lifting her cup to drink her tea as Eliza stood behind her. So, what was it you wished to discuss? Damian's mother asked Chloe, setting down her teacup on the saucer. Well, would you mind giving us a moment of privacy, Eliza? Chloe said calmly, still holding her teacup. Heavens, Chloe, Eliza has been in our service since Damian was born, her mother-in-law joked. She is practically part of the family. There is no conversation she cannot be privy to, Damian's mother assured Chloe. Chloe recalled the Duke's letter to her. To my dear Duchess of House von Thisse, how are you finding life at Birch Castle? I trust you are performing your duties as Duchess in a satisfactory manner. I hope you will not disappoint me. Missing you very much, Damian, she read. It was more like a written warning than a letter. My duties as a Duchess, she thought inwardly. After reviewing the ledgers over the course of 3 days, I have discovered discrepancies in the castle's finances. It is clear that money is trickling out through a crack, Chloe said, causing Eliza to flinch uncomfortably where she stood. My dear, overseeing a castle of this size is no easy feat, Mrs. Thisse remarked, placing her teacup on the table. Yes, and that is all the more reason to manage it as meticulously as possible, Chloe remarked firmly, her gaze steady as Eliza stood nervously glancing at her lady. It is unclear from the records where the money is being spent, and the sum of the taxes levied from the people does not add up. Additionally, there is a discrepancy between the number of wine bottles in the cellar and the amount recorded in the ledgers. This is not an isolated incident but a pattern that has repeated itself, Chloe explained, detailing the financial discrepancies in the Thisse books. It seems these irregularities began appearing precisely around the time that Eliza took on the role of steward, Chloe said, looking directly at Eliza, who became visibly frightened, trembling as she clutched her skirt tightly. Eliza sniffled and tears started to roll down her cheeks as she began to sob. The room fell silent, the weight of Chloe's words hanging heavily in the air as Eliza's distress became palpable. Eliza, Lady Thisse said with a sigh. Please leave us for a moment, she added, holding her head with her hand and looking visibly disappointed. Yes, Your Grace, Eliza replied softly, sniffing her nose as she left the room and gently closed the door behind her. Do you not think it would have been wise to discuss such matters in private? Lady Thisse asked Chloe. My apologies, Your Grace. Still, I think it will be necessary to dismiss Eliza and the stable master Robinson, Chloe said coldly. Robinson? Now what? Lady Thisse asked with scorn, directing her question at Chloe. Eliza would have had to use a wagon to smuggle such a large volume of inventory out of the castle. The volume of stolen goods was such that it would have been impossible for her to have acted alone, Chloe revealed. Both of them have been loyal servants who supported me through difficult times. Their dismissal is not a decision to be taken lightly, Lady Thisse tells Chloe. Which makes their dishonesty all the more unforgivable, Chloe added firmly. If Eliza had valued your appreciation for her, she could never have done such a thing behind your back. A crack like this will become bigger as time goes on, Chloe said earnestly, while Lady Thisse watched her quietly, seeming to ignore her words. If you turn a blind eye to this, ma'am, their transgressions will only grow worse. It will bring damage to House Thisse, Chloe continued, but she was cut off by Lady Thisse. Chloe, why do you insist on making my life difficult by bringing up such things? Lady Thisse said scornfully. And why are you calling me ma'am, as if we are strangers? You have married into the family, she added, her tone becoming angry. Then will you permit me to call you mother? Chloe asked, her expression tense. That does not seem fitting either, Lady Thisse scoffed. This is the end of our conversation. I shall discuss this matter with Damian when he gets here and then come to a decision. You shall have to eat lunch by yourself. I do not have much of an appetite at the moment, she said, rising angrily from her chair. Shall I have your meal brought to your room? Chloe asked politely, despite the tension between them. As I said, I have lost my appetite. I understand if you do not want my company, but skipping meals is harmful to your health, Chloe said gently, before being interrupted by her mother-in-law. Can't you remain silent instead of having an answer for everything I say? You really can be quite exasperating, Lady Thisse scoffed, abruptly walking away from Chloe and leaving her alone. During dinner, Chloe sat by herself at the dining table. A maid poured her a glass of water. Please call me if you need anything, the maid said softly, shutting the door behind her as she left. Chloe picked up her cutlery, surrounded by silence. I suppose I've managed to make myself properly hated, haven't I? She thought to herself, recalling the whispers of the maids outside. I heard she wanted to fire Miss Eliza when she's hardly been here a week, one maid whispered to another. This is exactly why it's so important to be prudent when selecting a bride, said the other maid scornfully, as Chloe stood silently at a distance, listening. Thoughts swirled in Chloe's mind. Everything has lost its taste. I wonder if father is well. I hope Gillis made it back safely. Has Alice written again? When will the Duke return? Chloe thought. She wondered if things would improve when he returned, recalling his stern instructions to fulfill her duties as Duchess. Chloe shook her head in frustration, unable to eat her food. No, of course not. It's as if driving people into a corner is a custom of House Thisse, she thought angrily, stabbing at her steak. I don't know who's worse, the mother or the son, she muttered softly, exhaling in frustration, unaware of someone approaching her from behind, his footsteps silent. You seem to be having a pleasant conversation. Duke Damian's voice suddenly cut through the silence, stunning Chloe. She froze in surprise as he placed his arm on her chair. It's unlike you to be talking to yourself, he remarked, meeting her gaze directly. I must have made you very lonely while I was gone, he added, his presence filling the room. Your Grace, Chloe exclaimed, standing up from her seat in surprise. Damian, my dear son, his mother exclaimed excitedly, rushing into the dining room with her maids. I must be dreaming. You should have sent word you were coming, she said, holding him and beaming with joy. I returned early because I missed you, mother, he told her warmly. Oh, you are too sweet, his mother exclaimed happily, while Chloe stood observing them, confused but silent. The journey back must have drained you. Look how thin your handsome face has become, she said, placing her hand on his face as he held it. On the contrary, I must have drank all the spirits on offer in the first-class carriage, he joked, holding his mother's hand as she touched his face. Well, rushing over here has made me rather hungry. I think I shall have something to eat, he said, glancing at Chloe, his mother giggling with joy. Of course. I'll have Mrs. Dutton prepare something for you at once, she said excitedly. No need, there is plenty on the table already, he replied, referring to Chloe's meal, causing her to flinch slightly. Have them prepare an extra table setting, he instructed his mother. The table was set for their meal. So, did you find everything to your satisfaction while I was away, Chloe? Duke Damian asked her. Of course, she replied, holding her cutlery and avoiding his gaze. Is that so? He inquired. Yes, everyone has been so kind. They made my stay very pleasant, she told him. How wonderful to hear, he said before cutting into his steak. He picked up a piece and started chewing. Suddenly, Duke Damian slammed his hand hard on the table, causing the plate to slam and spilling his wine in the process. Damian! His mother stuttered in shock. Damn it, he muttered, spitting out the food onto a handkerchief as he cleaned his mouth. Summon the physician at once, Duke Damian said with a dark look. Damian, whatever is the matter? Why do you need to see the physician? His mother inquired anxiously. As the primary doctor of this family, he has failed to protect your health. As a result, I intend to have him put to death at once, he declared coldly. Chloe watched in disbelief, her heart pounding with unease at the sudden turn of events. My dear, I am perfectly fine. What on earth are you talking about? His mother asked him, her voice tinged with concern. The fact that you have been consuming such unpalatable fare without a word of complaint suggests there is something grievously wrong with your sense of taste, Duke Damian said, grasping his mother's hand and leaning towards her, causing her to look a bit scared. There is nothing wrong with my palate, Damian. The physician is blameless. Forget about punishing him, his mother said, waving his hand away from hers. Are you certain? He pressed her. The steak is absurdly tough. The vegetables are dry and shriveled. The soup was clearly prepared days earlier, and the wine is not fit to be served on the tables of House Thisse. Are you saying you were aware of that, mother? He questioned her sharply. Very well then, bring me the chef, Duke Damian ordered with an angry look, gripping his knife hard as he watched the maids. I simply do not understand, the chief maid told him, visibly perplexed. How did leftovers meant for the poorhouse end up being served here? Duke Damian asked, his tone severe. The poorhouse? The maids whispered among themselves, clearly shaken. Yes, it seems those who were tasked with setting the table must have made some sort of mistake, Duke Damian said, his anger palpable as the maids gulped nervously. We have committed a grave sin, they all shouted, slumping to the ground with their heads bowed. Please, please spare us, your grace, the chef and maids begged desperately. Do you expect to live after this affront to my family? Duke Damian questioned with an angry look. Throw them in the dungeons and tear each one of them limb from limb, he ordered fiercely, but his command was interrupted by Chloe. Your grace, it was but one meal. Please forgive them for this small transgression, she said softly yet firmly. My wife, this food was intended for the poorhouse, he explained to her. And it is still fit for human consumption, Chloe countered. I explicitly instructed you to fulfill your duties as Duchess. Did you fail to understand the meaning of my words? He asked her, the maids trembling as they bowed down before him. To sit here consuming such inedible scraps without protest is an insult to my name. You may be from a humble noble family, but this much should be common sense, Duke Damian told Chloe, his eyes filled with a sinister look. I apologize for my negligence, she said, clenching her skirt in her hands. However, as your wife and a lady of this house, I implore you to restrain yourself and show them mercy, Chloe affirmed, her words causing the maids to look up gently with hopeful eyes. Afford them the opportunity to serve me a formal dinner befitting House Thisse, she added softly. Later that night, Chloe arrived at her room and prepared for bed. By some stroke of luck, I managed to save the servants' lives, she thought, rubbing her hand against her bed. She remembered Duke Damian's words that evening. I suppose I must relent if that is what you want. You truly are a generous woman, he had told her. She slumped onto her bed. What a long day, Chloe remarked with a sigh. I am so relieved I didn't have to see their heads go flying. I was already feeling sick to my stomach, she added wearily. Suddenly, there was a knock on her door. My lady, a maid said, peeking through the door as she gently opened it. His Grace wishes to see you in his chambers, she informed Chloe softly. What on earth could he want at this hour? Chloe wondered aloud. Please inform him that I shall be there as soon as I am ready, she instructed the maid, rising from her bed. As soon as you are ready? What preparations could you possibly need to make? Duke Damian asked, stepping into her room unexpectedly. There is no need for decorum or proper dress at this hour of night, he told her firmly, causing her to instinctively cover herself upon seeing him in her room. Do you not agree, my wife? He asked, kneeling beside her bed. I'll join you in your chambers as soon as I am dressed, so please give me a few moments, Chloe said softly, feeling a hint of shyness as she kept her hands folded. As I said, there is no need for such decorum. Just come, Duke Damian replied with a smirk, sitting casually on her bed. Chloe glanced at him quietly, then reached for her walking cane and her robe. Are you unable to get off the bed without the support of your cane? He asked her. It is not easy. I could easily find myself on the floor. Is that what you wish to see? Chloe tells him, pulling her robe over her body. That would be rather adorable, he tells her cheerfully. Then, shall we go to my room, my wife? Duke Damian proposed politely. In his chambers, they faced each other across the fireplace in the parlor. It is rather late. Was there something urgent you needed my help with? Chloe asked calmly. What business do you suppose there could be between husband and wife at an hour? Duke Damian countered, his question making Chloe feel slightly uneasy. Could he be possibly referring to the deed we left unperformed on our wedding day? Chloe thought. Her heart raced as she clutched her cloth nervously. She turned away from his gaze, feeling her face flush with embarrassment. Duke Damian observed her expression with a smirk, confident he could read her thoughts. I intend to reward you for faithfully carrying out your duties as Duchess, he declared, interrupting Chloe before she could finish her sentence. I don't believe I did anything, Chloe began, but Duke Damian cut her off. You got rid of Eliza and Robinson for me, he stated matter-of-factly. Are you saying you knew about their dishonesty? Chloe asked, stuttering slightly in surprise. I love my mother, and I knew how attached she was to those two, so I turned a blind eye to their misdeeds, he explained with a nonchalant shrug. Why are you making that face? Is it so shocking that I love my mother? He asked, seeming amused by Chloe's reaction to his mention of his mother. Oh, no, not particularly, Chloe replied, feeling a bit shy under his scrutiny. You look appalled, he remarked, standing up from his seat. Though she may be temperamental and immature, she is the woman who gave birth to me. She will be spending some time at our villa in the south for now, he continued, walking away across the room. She's simply heartbroken by poor Ellie and Robbie's dismissal, you see. It will do her good to get a change of scenery and some fresh air. As he spoke, he happily brought over a boxed gift for Chloe, seemingly pleased with the turn of events. And this should help you better adapt to life here, he told her warmly. Could it be? Is this man showing me kindness? Chloe thought to herself. Duke Damian pushed the gift toward her from the table. Open it, he urged. Chloe cautiously lifted the lid of the gift box and peered inside. She was amazed at what she saw. I thought I would give you something far more practical than that cane, which you seem to be in the habit of losing, he explained, watching her reaction as she examined the walking brace. It's a brace, she said softly, looking up at him. Once you get used to it, you will be able to walk comfortably without support. Try it on, so I can see, he encouraged. Chloe hesitated, a tinge of sadness in her eyes as she glanced at the brace. I thank you for the gift, but whether or not to use it is at the discretion of the recipient, she replied politely, lowering the lid back over the gift. I shall try it on some other time. In her mind, Chloe felt fear. She didn't know how to use the brace. She had grown accustomed to relying on her cane. I do not wish to be seen hobbling around and falling over. It's obvious that he intends to mock me, she thought anxiously. What on earth is he? She began to ponder, but Duke Damian interrupted her thoughts with more words. At your discretion, Chloe said, choosing her words carefully. Then I suppose you think inviting your servant into your compartment for a tryst should be at your discretion, too, Duke Damian retorted sharply, startling her. Did you have someone follow us? Chloe asked, taken aback. When you are a member of House Thisse, you hear all sorts of news, whether you want to or not, he informed her coldly. What is your reason for showing him generosity far exceeding what a servant deserves, and bringing him to my estate? He demanded, his expression filled with anger. Gillis is a faithful servant who has worked for our family since he was a child. Nothing more, Chloe explained firmly. Eliza nursed me instead of my mother when I was an infant, yet she betrayed our trust, Duke Damian countered, his voice laced with bitterness. A brief, tense silence hung between them as Chloe looked away with a sigh. I ask you to cease insulting me, Chloe told him calmly. I am not insulting you, but giving you counsel, Duke Damian retorted sharply. Your faithful servant has not left the Thisse train station. If people discover that he has remained here out of some lingering attachment to his mistress, what sorts of things do you suppose they will whisper behind your back? He asked with a harsh tone. Chloe felt confused by his accusations. Gillis hasn't gone back to the Verdier estate? Why? She wondered aloud. I do not believe you abandoned your duties as Duchess and brought shame upon me, Chloe von Thisse, Duke Damian said, leaning towards her from behind and holding her hand, causing her to flinch slightly. So, put the brace on at once, he commanded, leaning towards her ear. Chloe fidgeted for a moment before reluctantly doing as he instructed. As she attempted to walk with the brace, she shouted in pain, stumbling and falling on her first attempt. Duke Damian knelt close to her, asking, what part of it do you find uncomfortable? Chloe abruptly held his hand as he tried to reach out to adjust the brace. Please, do not touch me, she told him firmly. Then answer me. I must know its flaws in order to correct them, he insisted. The entire device is uncomfortable because I do not need it. It only causes me pain, Chloe blurted out. It shall have the opposite effect once you get used to it. That will take time and effort, he calmly explains. Chloe looks away, huffing softly. Are you crying? He asks, gently stroking her face. Why should I? She remarks, turning her face away. Yes, crying like a child is unbecoming of a duchess, he says, sliding up her dress to examine her leg. Your Grace, you truly are like a devil, Chloe says softly, her body flinching gently as he touched her. But I have yet to show you just how much of a friend I can be, he tells her, leaning closer to her face. Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure. If you enjoyed what you watched, please consider liking, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. Your comments mean the world to us and help us improve. The next episode promises even more excitement and unexpected twists, so stay tuned as we embark on this thrilling journey together. Keep the anticipation alive and we'll catch you in the next episode.